Somewhere between 62 and 70, you will fill out one form and start collecting Social Security. You get to pick the year. That is the only real choice the system gives you. It is also worth more money than almost any other decision you will make about retirement. Here is what the choice is actually worth. Take somebody with an average earnings record. If they sign that form at 62, the check is about $1,459 a month. If the same person waits until 70, the check is about $2,584. Same work history. Same 40 years of payroll taxes. The difference is $1,125 a month. And whichever one you land on is what arrives for the rest of your life. So how are you supposed to choose? The standard method is to find the break-even age. That is the age at which waiting finally catches up and passes claiming early, and for most people it lands around 80. Expect to be around past that. Wait, expect otherwise. Claim now. I think that method is answering the wrong question, and I want to show you a better one. I'm Tom. This channel is about real personal finance. The kind that works for normal people instead of the kind that sells you something. No motivational fluff, no fantasy returns, no get rich quick. Just what the math actually does over time. If that is what you want, hit subscribe. Start with the mechanism, quickly, because the numbers changed this year in a way worth knowing. For anyone born in 1960 or later, full retirement age is now 67. That is new. The phase-in that started decades ago finished this year, so 67 is where it sits permanently. Claim before that and your benefit is permanently reduced. Claim after and it permanently increases by about 8% for each year you wait, up to 70. Run it against the average benefit, which the Social Security Administration puts at about $2,084 a month. Claim at 62 and you get 70% of that, $1,459 a month. Claim at 67 and you get the full amount, $2,084. Claim at 70 and you get 124%, $2,584. The spread between the earliest and the latest is $1,125 a month. That is a 77% increase for waiting 8 years, and this is permanent. Whichever number you pick follows you for the rest of your life, adjusted for inflation each year, but never rebased. That inflation adjustment is worth pausing on, because it quietly widens the gap. The cost of living adjustment is a percentage, and in 2026 it was 2.8%. A percentage applied to a bigger number produces a bigger raise. Start at $1,459. After 20 years of typical adjustments, you are at about $2,534. Start at $2,584 instead. The same 20 years takes you to about $4,489. The gap between the two choices started at $1,125 a month. 2 decades later, it is closer to $1,955. So the decision does not just set your starting check. It sets the base that every future raise gets calculated on. Which brings us back to the break-even age and why that way of deciding misleads people even though its arithmetic is right. Run it honestly, someone claiming at 62 collects for 8 years before the person waiting until 70 collects anything. The waiter is far behind and stays behind for a long time. The crossover lands at about age 80. Before 80, claiming early produce more total dollars. After 80, waiting pulls ahead and keeps pulling. By 85, the waiter is ahead by about $76,000. 10 years on from there, the lead has grown to $211,000. So the standard advice comes down to a wager on your own health, with your family history as the tip sheet. Here's the problem with that. It treats Social Security as an investment you are trying to maximize, and it is not an investment. It is insurance. Think about what insurance actually does. You do not buy home insurance hoping your house burns down so you come out ahead. You buy it because the outcome you cannot recover from is the one worth protecting against. Social Security works the same way. What it protects you from is a long life running past the money you saved for it. In a short retirement, claiming early comes out ahead on paper, and the money stops being a problem either way. Nothing about that scenario can hurt you. Now picture a long one. You are 94, the portfolio has thinned, and the check is the main thing left. The difference between $1,400 a month and $2,600 is the difference between managing and not managing. That is the scenario worth planning around. And the break-even calculation quietly ignores it in favor of the one that cannot hurt you. That is the first reframe. Here is the second, and for married couples, it is bigger. Most content treats this as one person's decision about one person's income. For a couple, the higher earner's claiming age sets income for 2 lifetimes. Take Ray and Carol, a couple I have talked about on this channel before. He drove a regional delivery route around Wichita. She worked in and out of the workforce raising children. Say his benefit at full retirement age is $2,400 a month and hers is $1,600. Between them, the household collects $4,000. When one of them is gone, the household does not keep both checks. It keeps the larger one, and the smaller one stops. So their income falls from $4,000 to $2,400, 40%, at a moment when the surviving partner has plenty else to deal with. Now change only one thing. Vary Ray's claiming age and watch what happens to whoever survives. If Ray claims at 62, the survivor lives on $1,680 a month for the rest of their life. If Ray claims at 67, the survivor gets $2,400. If Ray waits until 70, the survivor gets $2,976. That is a difference of nearly $1,300 a month between the earliest and latest choice, paid to the person left behind. If that person lives 15 years alone, it comes to about $233,000. Carol's claiming age barely matters to this. Ray's decides it. So for a married couple, the rule of thumb is different from the individual one. The lower earner can often claim early with little consequence, because that benefit ends when the first of them is gone anyway. The higher earner is making a decision about 2 lifetimes and should usually wait. There is a second lever inside a marriage that couples routinely miss, and it works differently from the first. A spouse can claim on the worker's record rather than their own. That pays up to half of what the worker would get at full retirement age. On a $2,400 record, that is up to $1,200 a month. 2 rules govern it, and together they surprise people. The spousal benefit is capped at half the worker's full retirement age amount, and it does not grow with delayed credits. So if Ray waits until 70, his own check climbs to $2,976. Carol's spousal benefit stays capped at $1,200 either way. That matters because it separates the two effects cleanly. Ray delaying raises his own income and raises the survivor benefit. It does nothing for the spousal benefit while both are alive, which is another reason the higher earner is usually the one who should wait, and the lower earner usually is not. That is a general rule, and general rules break. If the higher earner has a serious health condition and the lower earner does not, the calculation can invert entirely. Run your own version rather than mine. Almost nobody prices what waiting actually costs, so delaying is not free. If you stop working at 62 and do not claim until 70, something has to pay for those 8 years. Usually that something is your portfolio. At the average benefit level, replacing that income from savings for 8 years means drawing about $200,000. That is a real cost, and I am not going to skip past it. You are spending $200,000 of accessible money to buy a permanently higher payment, but price what you got for it. Waiting raised the annual benefit by about $13,500 for life, adjusted for inflation every year. $200,000 spent, $13,500 a year received for life. That works out to a return of just under 7% a year guaranteed by the federal government and rising with inflation. That is the exchange rate. It is what your portfolio dollars buy when you turn them into permanent income. The break-even chart never shows you that number. There is no annuity you can buy on the open market with those terms. Not at any price. That comparison is the strongest argument for waiting, and most people never see it. The break-even chart has no column for it. There is one more way to size this decision. The difference between claiming at 62 and claiming at 70 is about $13,500 a year. The standard guideline says you can pull about 4% a year from a portfolio without running dry. Generating that much income takes about $338,000 invested. Now compare that to what people actually spend their attention on. Saving an extra $500 a month for 10 years builds about $83,000. 15 years of it builds about $151,000. So this one decision, made in an afternoon, is worth more than 15 years of finding an extra $500 every month. Most people spend far more time on the second thing than the first. Now the honest half? There are real situations where claiming at 62 is correct, and content pretending otherwise does people a disservice. The first is health. If a doctor has given you a diagnosis that changes your outlook, the longevity insurance argument simply does not apply to you. You would be paying premiums for coverage you are unlikely to need. Claim early. The second is not having the bridge. Everything I just showed you assumes a portfolio large enough to fund those 8 years. If waiting means running your savings to nothing by 68, or taking on debt, or skipping medical care, then waiting is not a strategy. It is a gamble on making it to the payoff. My neighbor Helen is exactly that case. She is 69, a retired children's librarian, and she claimed at 62 because she needed the money. Her benefit at full retirement age would have been about $2,000 a month. She receives about $1,400 instead, and she will receive that reduced figure for the rest of her life. After the first 12 months, there is no undoing it. That is not a story about a mistake. Helen had no bridge, which is precisely the situation the early option exists for. What it is a story about is how permanent this decision is, and how few people are shown the comparison before the form gets signed. The third is being the lower earner in a couple, which we covered. There, the early claim often costs very little. The fourth is needing to stop working, and it is the most common of the four. If your body cannot do the job anymore and there is no other income, claiming at 62 is not a mistake. It is the system working as designed. That is precisely why 62 exists, and there is no shame attached to using it. And there is a trap for anyone claiming early while still working, which catches people every year. If you claim before full retirement age and keep earning, Social Security withholds part of your check. In 2026, you can earn up to $24,480 before that starts. Above it, they hold back $1 for every 2 you earn. In the year you actually reach full retirement age, the limit jumps to $65,160, and the withholding drops to $1 for every 3. The important detail is that this money is not confiscated. Your benefit gets recalculated upward at full retirement age to account for what was withheld. But a lot of people claim at 62, keep working, watch their check shrink, and never find out why. Now the objection that has probably been sitting there this whole video: what if Social Security is not there when you need it? The 2026 Trustees Report came out in June. The retirement trust fund is projected to be depleted in the fourth quarter of 2032, 1 quarter earlier than last year's estimate. Depletion does not mean payments stop. It means the reserves are gone and the program runs on incoming payroll taxes. At that point, the trustees project 78% of scheduled benefits would be payable, unless Congress acts. So a lot of people conclude they should claim at 62 and lock something in before the cut arrives. Run that logic through the numbers. It does not survive contact with them. A benefit cut would be a percentage. It applies to whatever your benefit is, proportionally. Without a cut, claiming at 62 pays $1,459 a month. Claiming at 70 pays $2,584. Apply a 22% cut to both. Now it is $1,138 against 2016. Both numbers got smaller. The ratio between them did not move at all. Claiming early does not protect you from a proportional cut. It locks in a smaller starting point that then gets cut by the same percentage. Edward Jones put this plainly in their analysis of the report, and I think it is the right framing. Claiming decisions should be based on your own situation rather than on concerns about the program's long-term outlook. There is a second version of the same panic, which is claim at 62 and invest the checks. Run it. Claim at 62, invest every payment at 5%, and by 70 you have about $167,000. From 70 onward, the person who waited receives about $13,500 a year more than you do. It takes about 12 years for that extra income to exceed your pot. So the break-even is around 82, roughly where it was before. Except now one version is guaranteed and inflation indexed, and the other depends on the market cooperating for 20 years. One more real situation belongs here, because it is more common than any of the 4 above. Most people do not choose a claiming age. They stop working and claim because the 2 decisions feel like one decision. They are not. You can retire at 62 and claim at 70. You can also keep working until 68 and claim at 63. Nothing links them except habit. That separation is where most of the value in this video sits. Say you have a portfolio, or a spouse still working, or part-time income. Then the year you stop working and the year you claim are 2 independent choices. Treat them as one, and you can lock in 70% of your benefit for life at 62. With $500,000 sitting in an account and without ever running the comparison. So here is how I would actually decide this. Start with the question that matters most, which is whether you have a bridge. If claiming early is the only way to keep the lights on, that answers it and nothing else in this video applies. If you do have a choice, ask about health honestly. Not optimistically, honestly. A real diagnosis changes the answer. Vague pessimism about family history usually should not. If you are married, identify which of you has the larger benefit. Log into both accounts and compare, because it is not always who you assume, especially where one spouse took years out of the workforce. That person's claiming age is a decision about 2 lifetimes, and it deserves far more thought than the other one. Then look at the exchange rate rather than the break-even age. You are buying a permanently higher income stream that rises with inflation and is guaranteed by the government. You pay for it out of a portfolio that offers none of those 3 things. And pull your own numbers before any of this. It takes about 10 minutes, and it is the only part of this video that is actually about you. Go to the Social Security website, create an account, and look up your projected benefit at 62, at 67, and at 70. The average I used in this video is not your number. Payments in 2026 range from under $100 a month to over $5,000. For most people with the means to choose, waiting past 62 is the better decision. And for a healthy married higher earner, waiting all the way to 70 is usually the best one available. But the reason is not that you will win the bet on your own longevity. It is that the version of your future that needs protecting is the one where you live much longer than you expected. That is the only version where this decision still matters. If this was worth your time, hit subscribe. I will see you in the next one.